Season 2 of You, original by Netflix, Let's Begin. After a heated confrontation with Candace in which she vows to make him pay, Joe escapes to Los Angeles, leaving behind his old life in New York. He starts fresh under the name Will and finds a place to stay, as well as a job at a trendy family-owned grocery store, Ambyr, where he works in the book cafe. There he meets Love Quinn, a charming local who works in the kitchen, and despite feeling nervous, he tries to keep his distance. However, Joe finds solace in the friendship of Ellie Alves, his 15-year-old neighbor, who helps him create a more genuine online presence. Love takes him on a culinary tour of the city, giving him a chance to get to know her better, and he finds himself increasingly drawn to her. But a strange visitor to his apartment makes him revisit the past, and he recalls how he used Love's social media presence to track her down and secure a place near her. He also remembers how he has locked the real Will inside a plexiglass vault in a storage unit. Joe reflects on his arrival in LA and his encounter with Will, a man who provides new identities. He overpowered Will, locked him in the vault, and took on his identity. In the present, Love kisses Joe, causing him to experience hallucinations of Beck being near whenever he's with Love. Jasper, Will's visitor, demands $50,000 that Will owed him, and when Joe can't pay, Jasper cuts off the last joint of Joe's pinky finger as a warning. Joe eavesdrops on a lunch conversation between Love and her three friends, Lucy, a Hollywood agent, Sunrise, Lucy's girlfriend, and Gabe, Love's best friend who is pansexual. Love eventually catches Joe in a lie, leading to an argument, but they reconcile and agree to just be friends, as Joe fears causing her harm. In order to settle the debt with Jasper, Joe lures him to the storage unit where he kills him. Overcome with guilt, Joe apologizes to his imagined vision of Beck. He has the finger joint reattached and disposes of Jasper's body by grinding it in the kitchen at Ambyr. Delilah, Ellie's older sister and a reporter, confides in Joe that she was drugged and raped by the comedian Henderson when she was 17. As Joe tries to resist his growing attraction to Love, he becomes friends with her twin, 40, who aspires to be a writer, director, and producer, but is currently managing Ambyr. Despite his best efforts, Joe's attempt to reconnect with Love fails, leading to a heated argument between her and 40 about his career goals. Joe also notices Ellie hanging around with Henderson, a known predator, and decides to protect her by secretly installing spyware on her phone. In an effort to gather information on Henderson, Joe attends a party at the comedian's house, bringing 40 along to pitch a project. However, 40 has a drug-fueled breakdown, leaving Joe to take care of him. Despite his initial impression of Henderson, Joe begins to see a different side of him and brings Love over to help with 40. After getting Will back on his medication, Joe has him search Henderson's stolen laptop, but finds nothing. 40 reveals to Joe that Henderson has a secret kinky room in his house. Joe's growing relationship with Love faces challenges from 40's constant neediness, but he successfully wins over Love's friends. With Will's help from the vault, Joe breaks into Henderson's secret room and discovers Polaroid photos of unconscious women, including Delilah. He leaves the photos on Delilah's doorstep so she can expose Henderson. Joe also discovers that Ellie has found and disabled his spyware, and she is on her way to Henderson's house. In an effort to protect her, Joe watches as Henderson drugs Ellie's drink, and then doses Henderson as well. During his attempts to get a confession out of Henderson, Joe accidentally knocks him down the stairs, resulting in his death. Joe then releases Will, with the promise that he will stay quiet about his ordeal and disappear. While Love and 40 are at a film festival, 40 meets a woman calling herself Amy, who is actually Candace in disguise. While at the wellness retreat with Love, Joe's emotions are heightened by the arrival of Candace, who has found him after seeing a video of 40's meltdown. Candace reveals to Joe that she was his captive before she escaped from the shallow grave he thought he buried her in. Joe is further stressed by Love's troubled family dynamic and the fact that Candace has convinced 40 to adapt Beck's book into a screenplay. The police investigation into Henderson's death, initially believed to be a suicide, has now been reclassified as a murder. Despite the mounting pressure, Joe confesses his love to Love, revealing the depth of his feelings for her. Candace warns Joe to be on guard, and he must find a way to navigate this complex situation while protecting his newfound love. The funeral of Henderson takes place, and Love reflects on her final moments with her husband. Upon noticing a small falsehood from Candace, Love hires a private detective to keep an eye on her. Candace shows up at Joe's apartment when he is away, causing him to sneak into her place at night with the intention of getting rid of her. However, Candace also breaks into Joe's apartment, but Love is prepared and ready for her. Love has uncovered Candace's identity and troubled past, and Candace retaliates with the truth about Joe's background. Love confronts Joe, who explains that he left New York to escape from the obsessive Candace and that her negative claims are false. Despite this, Love still ends things with him, but 40 convinces Joe to keep his job. To offer comfort, Joe consoles Delilah, who is upset that Henderson's misdeeds will never be made public, leading to the two of them having sex. After her breakup with Joe, Love moves on with Milo, her late husband's best friend. Determined to get back into the dating scene, Joe downloads a book-loving app, but is disappointed by the flaws of his dates. Joe follows Milo on a hike, but runs into Gabe, who leads him to an emotional spiritual experience. Delilah thanks Joe for encouraging her to write about her experience with Henderson, and they end up drinking, having sex in public, and getting arrested. Fincher refuses to help them, but 40 uses his connections to bail them out. As Milo tries to take his relationship with Love to the next level, she is not ready for commitment. This leads to a fight between 40 and Milo, which involves Joe and angers Love. Fincher's suspicions about Joe's involvement in Henderson's death cause Delilah to search his apartment. She finds the storage unit keys and begins taking pictures of the vault, but is interrupted by Joe, who has been alerted by his nanny Cam. He locks her inside, promising to let her go the next day after he leaves town safely. As 40 arranges a plan for a staged self-kidnapping, he and Joe find themselves locked in a hotel room, tasked with polishing 40's screenplay. Despite feeling uneasy, Joe realizes he must help in order to escape before Delilah's release. As they work on the script, Ellie suggests starting from scratch, causing frustration for 40. He escapes from the room and Joe follows him to a bar, where 40 drugs him with LSD to enhance the creative process. Love finds Joe's farewell letter and comes to reconcile with him, convincing him to stay in LA. Despite the challenges, 40 finally completes the script, revealing that Beck was murdered by her ex-boyfriend in a crime of passion. 40 also confesses to Joe about a dark secret from his past, the murder of his au pair lover during a blackout. The next morning, Joe races to free Delilah from the vault before the timer runs out, but is devastated to find her dead inside. Joe is struggling to remember what happened while under the influence of LSD and cannot believe that he murdered Delilah. He starts investigating and tries to find out the truth by contacting Will. But Will is in Manila, as he promised, so he cannot be the murderer. Joe then turns to Calvin for help, who tells him that he came to Ambyr with 40 to get some groceries. Joe also confronts 40 and learns that he dropped Joe off at the storage unit and then called Candace. Candace and 40 have a heated argument, but when Candace checks her video call from 40, she sees Joe and the location where he was dropped off. She rushes to the storage unit and finds Joe standing over Delilah's body in the vault. Candace locks Joe in and calls Love to prove to her that Joe is a dangerous man. When Love arrives, Joe, believing he is a murderer, confesses everything to Love and apologizes to Candace. But in a shocking turn of events, Love reveals that she is the one who killed Candace and professes her love for Joe. Love confesses to Joe that she manipulated him into falling in love with her by thoroughly researching his past. She also confesses to killing both Forty's au pair and Delilah. Joe is shocked as he realizes that he has been Love's latest Beck. Love then shares her plan to build a family with Joe and Forty. She will frame Ellie for Henderson's murder and have the Quinn family lawyers make the case disappear, and make Delilah's death appear as a suicide caused by the backlash from her article. Despite being tempted to kill Love, Joe stops after learning she is pregnant with his child. At Lucy and Sunrise's wedding, Joe decides to stay with Love and love her. Thinking Joe is responsible for Beck's death, Forty tries to save Love from him. Joe locates Ellie, reveals Delilah's fate, and gives her money to leave before Child Protective Services can take her away. Forty confronts Joe with a gun at Annavering, but Fincher shoots and kills him. Love uses her family's influence to clear the way and shifts the blame for Henderson's and Candace's deaths onto Forty. Joe and Love move into a new home, and Joe's obsessive behavior returns as he becomes interested in their new female neighbor.